Welcome to the Startup Support Surgery podcast, where we light the entrepreneurial spark in medics and healthcare professionals. Join me, Dr. Jo Watkins, GP, business coach and co-founder of The How People, on a journey to discover where your medical know-how meets the business world. This will help you find some clarity on how to balance work, passions and family so that you can gain more freedom and control over your life, but also continue to help people, which is actually why most of us went into medicine to start with. Embarking on this entrepreneurial adventure is not easy. It is a roller coaster of emotions, but it's hugely rewarding and exciting in the process. Drawing on my 20 years of blending medicine and business as a GP, I am here to share experiences, insights and lessons. Expect lively chats, expert interviews and real-life stories from medics who have taken their own path. Let's break free from traditional healthcare norms and explore more innovative ways of making a real difference to people's health and well-being, along with paving the way for a brighter future for us as healthcare professionals. Oh, don't miss my free PDF called From Stethoscope to Startup, which is an 11-page guide in the show notes full of practical help and advice. This is your roadmap to kickstarting your journey with us. Enjoy the show. Welcome to this special summer series of the Startup Support Surgery podcast. Over the next 6 weeks, instead of my usual interviews, I'm sharing 6 short client stories from people I've had the absolute pleasure of working with over the last few years. And this time, I've deliberately taken myself out of the interviewing seat. The wonderful Liu Batchelor, who I first met back in the pre-COVID days when we were planning live events around the country for the How People, has interviewed each of my clients, asking them how they found me, what was going on for them at the time, what they were struggling with, what we worked on, and more importantly, what actually changed. I can try and tell you until the cows come home, but I think the best way to understand what it's actually like to work with me and be part of the Startup Support Surgery program is to hear this directly from people who've been through this journey themselves. Liu now offers client story interviews like this to other businesses too. So if you'd like somebody to help capture your clients' stories in this way, take a look at her details in the show notes. I really hope you enjoy these conversations. Now let's get into this week's client story. Today's client story is with the wonderful Dr. Mary Walling. When Mary joined the Startup Support Surgery program with her co-founder Emma Gins, she was at a very particular point in her life. Her children were older and she'd recently been made redundant, and for the first time in a long time, she did not have the structure of a job around her days. Mary is naturally very organised. She loves learning, she loves a plan, as you will hear, and she wanted somewhere useful to put her time, energy and focus while she and Emma built their business, Lamala Health. So she really embraced the structure of the programme. She worked through the content religiously, she came to all the calls, she learnt about marketing, visibility, and gradually began doing things that she'd never imagined herself doing, including posting consistently on social media. That won't be how everybody uses the Startup Support Programme. Some people join while they're working part-time or full-time. Many are raising younger children and fitting their business into tiny pockets of time, as I did, around the rest of their lives. They may move through the content much more slowly than Mary did, or just take what they need from it. But Mary's story is a brilliant example of what can happen when the support available meets the season of life that you are in. Mary talks so honestly about the free fall that she might have experienced after redundancy, the structure and the community she found instead, and how that support has helped her and Emma build a real online clinic, attract their own audience and patients, and create something entirely of their own. She also describes me as a bird launcher, which has got to be one of my favourite descriptions of what I do. Here is Mary's story.
My name is Dr. Mary Walling. I'm a GP by background, a British Menopause Society menopause specialist, lifestyle medic, and I run my own clinic with my really good friend and co-founder Emma Gins, and it's an online menopause clinic called Lamala Health.
How did you first come to know Jo?
I first heard about Jo spring 25. Myself and Emma both got made redundant from our job that we're working in. And one of our GP colleague friends said there was a lot of debate on this big group chat we were having, the redundancy group, about where do we go next. And one of the friends suggested Jo Watkins, and have we heard about her podcast? And I listened to loads of podcasts, do lots of walking, and hadn't listened to any of her podcasts, but then proceeded to listen to all of her podcasts over the next couple of weeks. And really thought Jo would be fantastic for us, as we then had a one-to-one call with her, just as a bit of a guiding light as to kind of structure things for us. So Emma and myself kind of decided that Jo would be a really good business mentor for us. And we got made redundant in the May and practically started with Jo a couple of weeks later.
So what were some of the challenges you were kind of facing in terms of getting started and making that transition?
There's loads of challenges. So the main challenge for me is that I really like being busy and I really like a structure. So having gone from being made redundant from my only job at the time, I could have been free falling, if that makes sense. Jo enabled me to have a bit of a structure. So my week was already filled up with a combination of community calls, one-to-one hot seats, when you could drip in and ask questions, masterclasses. So I then had some structure to my new work week. That was really good. And also Jo has a load of modules. So I then started on the modules, and there are loads and loads of learning to be done in between the kind of the calls and the community calls and that kind of thing. So it basically just gave me a load of work because I had no idea where to start. You know, I've been a medic for years. I've been a GP partner for years. So I knew about the running a business, but I've also kind of always had loads of admin staff around me in the past. So things like marketing and websites and social media and all those kind of things I really had never, ever done. That's what Jo gave me, the structure of a diary with things to do and then things to do in between time with basically a load of homework, which suited me as a quite dedicated female medic. So super helpful, gave me the structure. Essentially,
that switch from being full-time medic to being an entrepreneur, was there a challenge from an identity point of view or a personal point of view that was there in the background, or did you feel quite confident about it?
No, definitely not confident. So I think there's always a challenge when you're switching roles, you know. So I can do the medicine part. I've done the medicine parts for years. Being an entrepreneur, completely new. So I suppose the biggest challenge was essentially showing up. So things like social media, for example, Jo was super helpful for. I have always avoided social media. I've never really posted anything at all until last June. And Jo was really kind of like, well, you've got to pick one social channel and go for it. So it started on LinkedIn last June time, and then gradually have added other platforms as we kind of consistency have grown up for that. So that was a major hurdle, essentially, was showing up on those kind of places and having the confidence to do it. But Jo was quite, nobody will know you're there unless you show up. So actually we kind of had to show up, and then there's lots of masterclasses to show you how to show up as well. And then about the consistency, which we've both been really good at consistently showing up on social media since that, really. So that was the biggest challenge, was just showing up, essentially.
Yeah. And what was the impact that was having on your business?
Oh God, so that was massive. So I think that if we hadn't shown up in these places, people just wouldn't have found us, So we have got a lovely, beautiful website, which I really love. But it enabled our old patients to find us. So lots of patients, when we finally opened, because we had to go through CQC, which took months and months and months. So we had plenty of time to show up on social media whilst we're waiting for our business to essentially open, which it did in February this year. So our old patients to have gone, oh, I was Googling you and I found you here and here and here. And our old patients were able to find us. Our new patients have found us as well. Like a woman last week was like, oh, I was recommended your clinic. I looked at a new website and that was really nice. And then I went to this social media platform and that social media platform and actually decided you were the clinic for me. And without Jo kind of saying, look, guys, you really need to do social media, none of that. So we definitely wouldn't have had as many patients without that. So what Jo said to us is, you know, whilst you're waiting, you almost need to work on a bit of a waiting list, a bit of kind of people know, liking, trusting you in the background. So actually the shove to do that really, and I discounted at the time. I was like, oh God, I just can't believe that's true. And I kind of almost thought, what a load of crap, you know, who's going to have a waiting list? People are going to come and see us. But of course they just don't in reality. Without that, I don't think we would have been in as good a position by far.
Can you describe, so what was the process? What was the program? What did it involve on a practical basis?
So working with Jo, the program, you mean?
Yeah.
There's loads of different things. So there's loads of modules that you can literally go from the start and work your way through. There's obviously the podcast that you can listen to, which isn't part of that, but I think it's quite supplementary and helpful to listen to. There are loads of masterclasses, so various things from social media to money to marketing, you know, loads of different things within the masterclasses. So that was super helpful. Within your calendar, there's then the kind of the various community aspects, which, you know, I didn't realise I needed at all, but actually to be surrounded by a load of like-minded medics who are also trying their hand at setting up a business was super helpful. So to have that, and then have the community calls to meet up with those people, the hot seat calls to meet up with those people where you'd have 10, 15 minutes to kind of thrash out a particular subject. And then there were some live masterclasses during the year. We were part of the programme as well. So we also had several one-to-one sessions with Jo. And they were really helpful because they were obviously much more targeted as to kind of how can I move you and your current problem forward. So we would probably see Jo one-to-one every 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 months as a kind of touch base. Right, what have you done? What do you need to do to get the next step forward? And that, again, was super helpful whilst waiting to open, essentially. So there's a lot which suited me completely fine because I had no job. This was my complete job. So I just basically, we worked through everything and got a load of information from it. So I think it's probably what you make of it, if that makes sense. I think some people don't necessarily have the time to do all of those things, but if you have, there's a load of information there.
Right. You mentioned earlier about the showing up as that being a really key thing for you. But were there any other real light bulb moments or key insights or learning that turned everything or completely changed your perspective? Or what were those milestones or light bulb moments?
Yeah, so I think it really does go back to the showing up thing because I think my life moment is that you have to show up, but you have to also be consistent in showing up. So, you know, maybe other people show up, but then they don't show up again, or they show up really sporadically. So I think it's about the light bulb moment to me is you've got to show up, but you've got to be consistently showing up, and you will almost gathers momentum. And the same has been for our followers and our connections on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. You know, we're now kind of on several different things and definitely gaining momentum. You know, we've been on other people's podcasts as a result of it. So I think you really do have to show up if you want any kind of business. Either you've got to do the marketing or you've got to pay someone else to do the marketing, which I don't think is probably the right thing. I think you need to kind of learn it as much as you can. Yeah, so my light bulb moment in essentially for marketing purposes, you have to show up and you have to show up consistently. And I think Jo was really clear with that messaging. So we've kind of gone with that.
What's the impact been, I guess, of the showing up, but also the program more generally for part A for the business and part B for you personally as an entrepreneur and as someone making this all happen, essentially?
So I think the impact on the business initially is that we are now seeing patients, you know, and we're seeing our patients increase monthly, which is fantastic. You know, and who knows what would have happened without Jo, but I can't believe we'd have been so successful. And of course, we still have got plenty of success to go, but, you know, it's been much more successful as a result of having Jo in the community in our lives. So I think that is the kind of, from the business perspective, has been key. Personally, I think it was the camaraderie of having the community around me, just being surrounded by like-minded individuals and just seeing people were struggling to do what they needed to do or thriving. It's kind of always nice to have people who are further on than you in the group, like almost aspirational figures. There was people that maybe were further behind. So again, anybody could be in that group really in different stages, and that was really helpful. And for me personally, it was having that community, having that structure. I think I've said it a few times there, but I really like a bit of structure and I really like a bit of a plan. And that's what Jo's program essentially gave me. So it avoided me flailing around and going into dark places without a job as such.
Okay, and what's next for you and your business as an entrepreneur and as with the business that you're running?
Yeah, so just continue to do as we are really. We are collaborating with various people. So we've got various different groups of people coming our way, which is fantastic. And again, we would not have got those collaborations without being on various social media things. Just continue increasing our patient numbers, maybe starting to pay back our directors' loans, because so far we have accumulated debts and nothing else. Keeping going with marketing and actually showing up in places, networking. Again, I just didn't think those things even existed before the community. So essentially building on what we have already got.
So what would you say to other people, other medics who are in a similar position to you, maybe a year plus ago, who are considering, oh God, what do I do? Next steps. Yeah. What would your advice or suggestions to them be?
Well, I think, as I have suggested to lots of people, if you're in that position where you're thinking, how can I start a new business? I think Jo's podcasts are a great place to start. You really get a flavour of Jo and who she interviews. So I listened to them all and some of them several times. So that will help you. So there are loads of different business mentors on the market out there. So I think it's about, speaking to Jo, finding out who is the person for you. Jo was fantastic for us and I've recommended Jo lots. And I think she will fit lots and lots of people. She gets it as a medic mum who's kind of juggling life and business. Find a business mentor. Jo has been great. It's really hard to do it by yourself. I think people feel they can do it by themselves with a bit of research and ChatGPT, but that can lead to real rabbit holes. It's really hard to know what you need to do. So I think having a human being in the form of Jo and her community, it has been invaluable, really. So I think people have just got to commit to it and view it like as part of your business setup costs. If you hear anyone who's successful, they all seem to have business mentors, and your business mentors seem to change where you are in your career. And I think if you're just trying to get things off the ground, you don't really know where to start. Jo's structure and Jo's approach is really, really helpful. So I would definitely recommend it. And I just don't think you can go it alone. I think people think they can, but I'm just not sure how you would really do it. Or if you do it, maybe it's just much of a slower pace. But actually, we really went with Jo. We rolled with everything. We listened to everything. We watched everything. We've done everything. And actually, I think as a result, we are that much further on now than if over the last year we just flailed around a bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you were to bottle it or summarize it, what would you say is the ultimate value of Jo's work, the program, working with Jo?
So Jo is fab, she's super enthusiastic. She's very much like your cheerleader. So you have somebody great behind you. The community that she brings along with her are great. We've made some, lifelong friends from that community. They have been wonderful. So with Jo behind, with a great community, even if you don't think you need a community, you actually really do.
Anything you'd like to say to Jo or anything else you'd like to comment that I haven't already asked you?
Just to give a big thank you to Jo, really. She says, she's a bit of a bird launcher, and she really is. She has enabled us to fly. She's given us the tools. She's given us the equipment. She won't do anything for you, which is completely right, but she has pushed us along, and I think we are in a much better place with her as our shover behind us than we would have been without her. So a huge thank you to Jo and her community.
I hope this episode has sparked some new ideas or challenged your thinking. Transitioning from medicine to business is not easy. It's about adapting our skills while embracing the unknowns of entrepreneurship. It can be nerve-wracking, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. Please feel free to reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just shoot me an email at joe@bendylegs.com for support. And don't forget to grab the free PDF from the show notes, From Stethoscope to Startup, which is your go-to guide and resource for diving into entrepreneurship. Many thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Thanks for spending your precious time with me.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.